Today we are going to put this amp in here, and the cool part is it's going in the stock amplifier location for these. Let me show you. Welcome everybody. Today is going to be a amp review and an amplifier install. So just scooped up this little guy, super small. For the size reference, it's about the size of my Samsung Note. 4-channel amp, going to put it in the stock location on my LX450 / Landcruiser, same, in the dash where the original amp went to power the door speakers. And with the speaker, of course you get your manual specs are right here. 100 by 4 at 2 ohms, 75 by 4 at 4 ohms. I'll be running it at 4, of course. What comes with it? All your connections to whether you're going to run it on a 2-channel input or a 4-channel input. That's selectable on the amp. I'm running 4 because I've got the pre-outs for it on my radio. And then, of course, your speaker leads. And what's great about them is they're colored the same color as your head unit or your aftermarket head unit would be, so you can understand which color's which. If you've ever installed a stereo, you know what I'm talking about. As far as installation goes, just bought some stuff off Amazon, some RCA cables. I've already got one of these kits in the car, their 4-gauge kit, but I needed more 4-gauge to go into that amp. I'm going to use this to split it off once I make it inside the firewall from the original kit. And then I'm not going to be able to use screws to mount this where I'm putting it. So I found these random bolts in with some of my other junk. So we're going to try and make this work to hold the amp in place inside the dash. If you're not familiar with this amp, it's pretty cool. It can be you could run the front 2 channels for your regular speakers and then a sub off the rear. Just a lot of different options. And if you want to pause this to look at all your different parameters you can select. And now we'll keep moving. Worst part about the install right here. I got to sit here with my foot on the brake and the shifter in gear to get this panel out, to take the radio out, to hook up the RCAs and run another remote turn on. Of course, my emergency brake is all but useless, so got my tire chocked with another tire. We'll hope that holds. Over and out. Give me a second to get this wired up and we'll be moving on. All right, next step is pretty simple. Take these guys, color match them to those guys, and these are of course ran into the factory harness because someone has already installed an aftermarket head unit. So if you haven't done that yet, buy those little adapters. So this, some of those, some of that, bada bing, bada boom, hold tight. All right, all wired in like I'm back at store 3220 Circuit City Road Shop. That wasn't a long time ago, but there you go. They are all soldered and heat wrapped. So we are, or heat shrink, sorry. Heat wrap, what am I talking about? So we're ready to move on to the next part. We're wired for the speakers. Now I got to get power to the amp, get the amp mounted, get the RCAs connected, get the remote switch turned on, or the remote wire ran, and then we can put all of this trash back together. We're back. I did a test run really quick. Got it wired up. Haven't got it put in the dash yet, but I wanted to get all of my settings where I wanted them. Got louder, I've got it cranked up a little bit in the front because the front speakers are better currently. There's some Momos. I'm going to paint the grill to where they don't look as flashy. And then the backs are just some cheap Pioneers. Eventually I'll change that, but for now, that is all wired up. And if you were worried earlier about where I clipped the speaker wires coming out of the head unit, I went ahead and put some heat shrink on those and then wrapped it in electrical tape. So that's covered. And now I'm going to finish putting the head unit and the dash back together, and we can then mount the amp. And what I've done if you're not too familiar with these cars, there was an amplifier right here, stock, and mine was already removed. So there's a cover that goes right here that would have held this tiny little speaker down there. I've already removed the speaker. I'm going to put the grill back on it after I mount the amp in that little hole. So let's get all these wires shoved in, and then I'll figure out how to actually bolt it up. So hold on just a second. I keep saying that, hold on. I gotta edit that out. And go. I've decided that the amp is gonna fit better in backwards like this into there, which means I need to cover that sticker with some electrical tape. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you lay on the ground, you can see the angle at which I need to look to wire up the power, ground, and remote for this amp. So that's going to be fun. Let's see if I can do it. Let's take a minute to talk about mounting the amp. So you'll see I have super glued some nuts onto the backside of the amp, which is going to be the face of the amp that's facing us. Wanted to put them on the other side, but on this side, let's see, it's not flat. So I couldn't glue a nut there. So hopefully a little bit of super glue will hold that in place. You know, I don't need a whole lot, just torque to Guten tight. And on the top, I really didn't want to drill more holes or try and figure out how to line that up. So I made these holes a little larger. Oop. And my goal is to run a zip tie through there, back around, and fasten the amp. Again, not the most secure way, but definitely good enough for something this small and this light. So let's try and put it all together one more time, hopefully for the last time. And the saga continues. So if you remember earlier, I was pointing at how difficult those terminals were going to be to get to when I was looking from under the truck. Well, I can't get to those Allen heads because I've got the amp in backwards, so I have to go ahead and hook up these connections and hope that I can pry all this in there without them, you know, coming out. So, wish me luck. Okay, so our current situation, if this thing will focus, the nut that I had super glued, of course, didn't stick, as you can see. So now I'm using my vice grips, or not vice grips, needle nose, and a screw. This amp's never coming out now. Well, here it is. The amp is installed. Let's pull this cover. There it is. Just the essentials: toilet paper, winch controller, OBD2 scanner. Nothing to see there. And can you see the wiring? Hope so. All right. Easy as that. And if you're not familiar with taking this glove box out, it's 2 bolts. There, there. This panel has 1 screw right there. You can see where I ran my ground. Amps in. Got those 2 little screws at the bottom. Zip tie at the top. Had to do a little clearancing. Come on, focus. Because of the zip tie. But other than that, it is done. So the amp is in. I've had a little bit of time to adjust it and really put it through its paces. One, it gets hot really quick. So keep that in mind. Next, it's a little on the bright side. I'm not sure if that's just because of the other audio equipment in there. You know, my Polk speakers I've had in the past have generally been pretty bright. Plus, I don't really use Pioneer head units, so that's kind of new to me. EQ is good enough to really kind of tame it somewhat. It's still not perfect to my style, but for the $170 that it was, the fact that it fits in the stock amplifier location on the LX450/80 series really made it a huge benefit. So I really can't complain. So overall, happy with my purchase, and you should try them. Goodbye.